Hey all, I want to thank you if you've been tuning in to any of my videos since I started this channel. I just appreciate that somebody would just take a few minutes to tune in, even if they don't watch the whole video. And I guess I should apologize for my voice because I'm just getting over my first and only run around with COVID. I've been making a lot of videos lately on the subject of politics, I suppose, and the state of the world. And I really didn't want to do that because I've taken thousands of photos over the years. But I don't know, something just draws me back to just thinking about the world. And I think it has a lot to do with having children. When you're like in your 20s or even in your 30s, if you don't have kids, you tend to not notice certain trends in the world. Like, as strange as I find gender theory and this sweeping movement of transgenderism among kids, I think if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't be as concerned about it, about how rapidly it's grown and how quickly it's taken over our institutions to the point where it must not simply be accepted, but celebrated. And now we're starting to see the costs of that as young people entering just like their early 20s are talking about how much physical and mental anguish they've gone through since quote unquote transitioning. I went with my wife the other day for a ride out into the country with our kids. We've been stuck indoors for the last week or so. And we're driving through Columbia County, New York. The leaves are off the trees. It's the first really cold days. And I remember just thinking to myself that if this was 10 years ago before I had kids, I'd have a completely different set of things on my mind. And I might even be able to enjoy the beauty of Columbia County's roads more than my constant state of worry has me at this time, or allows me at this time. And that's just a feature of being a parent, I suppose, in 2022. At one point during our trip with my boys on the weekend, my older one, who has pretty significant autism, he decided that he wanted to roll down a hill. And you can see him attempting to roll down the hill. He hasn't quite figured it out yet, but he's getting there, and I think he really enjoys it so far, and he'll enjoy it more when he learns how to do it like a barrel. But I was just thinking about the day that I taught him how to roll down a hill, and that was in late August. And during that same day, I was having some trouble just being present with my kids, thinking about things in the world, obsessing about them, I suppose. And I wrote a little note that night, I suppose for no other reason than just to reflect on it, and I want to share it. Years ago, a dear friend took a bunch of LSD, and he reached the weird corners of his mind that he hadn't realized existed. Coming down from the trip in his dorm room a little later, he pondered solipsism, the idea that only your perceptions are verifiable, and as such, you could be living a dream. He then subjected us, his friends, to a long, unreadable email about his epiphany. And with that in mind, I apologize if this screed sounds like a hallucinatory rambling. Today I took my boys to Elm Avenue Park in Bethlehem, New York, and we sat for several hours on a little hill, under a tree, next to a tennis court. We brought a ball, a toy tractor, and some snacks. We just needed a quiet day with nothing big. My older boy is mostly low verbal, and when he was tired with us rolling things or ourselves down this little hill, he sat under the tree and played with sticks and blades of grass and chatted softly into the shade. My younger boy is very verbal, and he ran around a bit, barking and challenging me to keep up as I gave chase. While trailing the younger guy, I had a strange moment I can't well describe. It was brought on by a memory I had from 30 years ago, in that same spot or thereabouts. The memory was neither good nor distressing. It was of me as a 12-year-old, on a sunny spring day, during a school trip, sitting on that hill, ritualistically counting to calm the strange disorder that first came out in my mind that year, and has, still, as of this date, never left me. That is, OCD. It occurred to me that some 30 years on, I was still doing a version of that same counting that I was doing just minutes earlier, at the same spot or thereabouts. I think everyone who is blessed to live into adulthood has a moment when they realize how quickly a once unfathomable chunk of time has receded into the rear view. In 1992, as a 12-year-old, the thought of being 30 seemed so far in the distance, let alone being 42. Since I was a kid, I have had a propensity to ruminate, and time and dates are just one of those things that I ruminate about. At 42, when I meet somebody who is 20 or 25 or 30, I try to transport myself to where I was at those ages to get a feeling for how much time has passed. Each decade seems to fly by more rapidly than the previous one. But some strange thread ran between these 2 points where I was an awkward adolescent with a full head of hair to an insecure parent with much, much less hair and most of it gray. I recognize so little of the world from back then being 1992, and yet it seems to have passed the platform like an express train speeding by to some other stop. If, God willing, I'm here another 30 years and happen to recall today, it will likely seem a shorter interval. The train will have sped up. I'm not sure why I'm sharing this. It was a moment of confusion, terror, and resignation. All of us are subject to time and space. We can make no guarantees of next year or tomorrow, nor receive any. Our Creator, who exists outside of time and is neither old nor young, wills each second that we have. He knows how it ends, knows when we breathe our first breath and exhale our last breath. He knew the moment I sat on that hill counting obsessively that one day I would sit on that same little hill while one boy played with sticks, talking quietly to himself, and the other challenged me to a game of keep-up. There's nothing profound to anything I've said, of course. Midlife brings on these transitory thoughts. It will all end someday in time, and how quickly it passes won't matter, only how you lived with what you were given. And so that will bless you, and I hope you are well. And if I don't make a video before the end of the new year, Happy New Year. God bless.